Hi, folks. John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Meliorvia. I'm up here today with Mikey.
What is up, John? How is life?
It's going pretty well. How about you, Mikey?
You know, it's good. I know you had a little getaway, which,
A little bit.
I know you're telling me about that, but, we're back, and it feels good to be back.
It is. And tonight, though, I thought we'd flip it around and let you be the expert.
I know. Just a little backstory. I play video games, as you all know, and I know nothing that goes on between these podcasts besides my listening ears.
You're trying to learn a little bit.
Right. I've learned a lot, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a fun ride, but for once, Carlos mentioned to me that we had an RPG in stock that was originally in the video game community, and they forged it into the RPG community, and we're talking about Dishonored, people.
Right. So
Dishonored.
You know a lot more about this than I do because my video game expertise on this begins and ends with having read the Wikipedia page.
Right, and I thought it'd be cool to kind of contrast the game between the actual RPG here. So
absolutely.
A little short running. Dishonored. There's two games. It's kind of like a.
Right, Wikipedia told me there were three.
It's kind of like a trilogy at this point.
Okay.
We have Death of the Outsider, which was the most recent. That was an expansion to Dishonored 2.
Okay.
So they count it as 3.
And then there's kind of like a future setting one too, right?
Right. So in Dishonored 1, it's basically this very dark world. You're on Dunwall. We're in Dunwall.
And then part of it, you do some stuff in Karnaca as
right,
well,
right. Karnaca
like?
is more so the second.
Okay, that makes sense from the
Dishonored.
way they presented it in the book.
Right. So you actually start off in Dunwall. It's this dark city, dark clouds everywhere.
Kind of steampunky without the steam.
Right.
That's the thing I keep seeing.
And I love the art. If you guys check out the art from Arcane Studios,
and
they're great.
Bit of the art in here is actually from the game. Inside here, there's some concept art as well as some of the artwork that's, just game bits.
And you start Dishonored 1 as an assassin named Corvo Emily. And this assassin is actually a security to the throne who is Jessamine Caldwin. She's the empress at the time. So you're basically, I think you're also romantically involved with Jessamine. It never says it in the game, but I believe that that's your either wife or significant other in a way.
And that type of character is very much something you can portray within the role-playing game. And we'll touch on that as we get into it. But there's certainly opportunities for assassin-style characters in here.
And you don't play as Corvo himself. It doesn't mention those characters in the game.
No, not that I saw. He might be statted up in the back with the NPCs, but it's not intended that you're actually playing the exact same characters or even playing through the same storyline as in the video game.
And through the first game, make this really short. Spoiler alert, Jessamine Caldwin, the Empress, gets assassinated in front of you, and you're Corvo, and you see that happen in front of you. And these assassins come real quick. They assassinate her. They're out of there. And your job is to only get redemption. None the more, none the less. And Emily Caldwin, Jessamine's daughter, your daughter as well, I believe, biologically, gets kidnapped by these people. And your job is to not only get Emily back safely, but ravage through the very inconsistent behaviors of, the Empire as they pretty much betray you, and you have to try and uncover all these secrets. And it's a very dark game, very cool, very brutal, very rated M.
It seemed like there were very strong themes between the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
Throughout.
Very big separation of society.
Yes.
There's a big rat plague going on, so rats are everywhere.
And rats are statted up with the NPCs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just to make clear.
And then, Dishonored 2 is a sequel that takes place 20 to 15 years later, actually, in the future. I think that's what you were talking about, maybe.
So when we get in, I'll just mention it. There are 2 scene sections of the book where they give you locations with organizations and different plots. And the first one of those is on the banks of the Wrenhaven, which is about Dunwall. And that gives you some maps and some propaganda pieces, adventure hooks, locales, and different organizations and NPCs that you can interact with in Dunwall. And then there's another chapter that's devoted specifically to Karnaca. It's called the Jewel of the South.
Right.
And again, you get maps, locales, factions, and adventure hooks. And then it talks about, I think Karnaca is just a city, right?
Yeah.
So that's set on the island of Serkonos.
Yes.
And there's a little bit more coverage about Serkonos as a whole, and a couple other cities there, Calero and Sagunto.
Yeah.
Are also presented in that chapter.
And Serkonos is where Corvo grows up, and that's where he's raised. And through the second Dishonored, you actually get a choice to play between Emily or Corvo, because Emily's now grown as a woman at that point.
Oh,
Because
cool.
spoiler alert, you save her in Dishonored 1.
Sure.
You uncover...
If she's showing up in the second one, that kind of makes sense.
Right. And you see on the cover, actually, the cover right here is Emily sitting in the throne with Corvo to her right, and he's the royal protector. That's his actual, name and title. So
and
it's
you get
really
about
cool.
50 pages talking about Dunwall, a little less talking about Carcana, about 36 pages.
What's crazy is what they did with Dishonored 2 is there's 2 totally separate campaign stories. So if you choose to play as Emily, completely different
and
story.
then that makes sense why you've got the different locations that are featured as well.
Right, and different abilities maybe.
Sure.
Depending on...
And that can certainly be the case in the game when you're talking about characters.
Right.
So let's step back a little bit.
I'm letting you take it away at this point.
Talk about the game
Let's
itself.
talk about the RPG.
Federico Sones, Virginia Page are the 2 leads, and Nathan Dowdell also did a lot of work. I worked with Nathan on a lot of 40K RPG stuff in the past, and all of them are part of Modiphius's 2D20 team. They actually did a lot of work on, speaking of video game adaptations, the Fallout line of games that Modiphius also published. I'd love to talk about those at some point. We need to talk Carlos into getting those books in.
We have one of them.
Do we?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what we can do. It does use the 2D20 system, so that is a very similar system. Well, it's the same system, essentially, but tweaked that is used for the Star Trek game that we've talked about before. I actually helped create this system back in one of its first iterations for Warzone, but it's changed quite a bit since then. I worked with Jay Little on that.
That's really cool.
Yeah. The game, in terms of artwork, as we mentioned, has a lot of concept art from the game and a fair bit of in-game artwork. And, kind of this Victorian feel, right?
Yeah.
Based kind of on London and Edinburgh of like the late 19th century.
Very much so. Big towers with bridge connecting to it type vibe. It's
And you've got that central river that kind of replicates the Thames flowing through it all, judging from the maps. The book is about 308 pages, and it is a hardcover. It's full color. It's $40, but it's a little smaller than our usual 8.5 by 11. It's digest sized, so that 308 pages might not quite have as much content as you might think because the pages are smaller. At the same time, there is a lot going on in here, and one of the cool things I liked about it a lot is that they actually use some comic book style artwork to present some of the stuff. So to intro the book, there is a comic, and then when you get into the game mechanics section, there's also some comic book artwork there.
Oh, nice. Nice little rats.
Yeah, exactly. The first 3 chapters kind of cover, once you get past the overview of the setting, kind of cover the 2D20 rules. There are some different tracks that you can use for keeping track of different elements in the game that are specific to the Dishonored setting. Those are Truths, Chaos, and the Void. And then you get a little more comics interspersed there as you're covering through the game mechanics. And like I said, those first 3 chapters cover that, and then you get some expanded details and kind of a GM section on just the nuts and bolts of running the game. After that, we move into the protagonists, which is their character creation section. This runs about 24 pages. Every character is going to have 2 truths, which are kind of a custom element that are defining for the character. You've got a group of 6 skills and 6 styles. Anytime a character goes to undertake an action, you add the value of the skill to the value of the style, and then any focuses or talents or situational elements, and then you need to roll under that on one of the 2D20 that kind of define the system. That's the core game mechanic. So I said characters have skills, they have styles, and those kind of replace attributes. And then they have focuses. Focuses are picked from kind of a lengthy list, and they're kind of comparable to what you might see as a skill in most other RPG systems. Characters then have talents, and the talents are linked to which archetype a character has. One of those archetypes is the Outsider's Mark, which is kind of your gateway to doing magic special effect type things.
Yep, and that is relative to the Void. They call it the Void. It's kind of like this this place that you're only heard of until you actually experience it yourself.
And I believe the Outsider is kind of a deific character.
He is. He's absolutely that. He's actually stuck in the Void, and Death of the Outsider kind of that expansion definitely is very relative to the Void and the Outsider himself.
And then archetypes kind of replace classes. Your talent's going to be linked to your archetype. There are 13 different archetypes: Assassin,
Yep.
being one that we've already talked about. Commander, courier, duelist, entrepreneur, explorer, guide, hunter, inventor, sharpshooter, scholar, scout, and miscreant.
Nice.
And then there's some detailed rules for character advancement. The next chapter after that is Dressed to the Nines. This covers your gear, and also gives you an opportunity, a section that I think is probably a callback to the video game, where you can upgrade specific pieces of gear. I'm guessing that's a game mechanic in the video game.
Do they mention runes at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but runes come in the next chapter, which is Into the Void.
Nice.
And that is our special effects chapter, where you talk about the Outsider, you talk about magic and special abilities, bone charms, the Outsider's mark, artifacts of the void, and runes are part of that.
Nice.
Then we have the 2 background chapters that I mentioned, where we talk about Dunhull and Karnaca. And then we get into Beyond the Shores, which is if you want to have a high seas adventure, or if you want to adventure in Morley or Tivia.
Okay.
Hoping you know where those places are.
I've had some Tivian pairs in my day.
And then we get into an NPC section called Of Street Urchins and Masked Aristocrats.
Ooh.
And that's 50 pages. So that's a big chunk of this book. And it covers everything from a rat and a street peddler all the way up to the outsider.
Nice.
As presented in the game mechanics. And then the last bit of the book, about 20 pages, is a sample adventure. It's set in Dunwall. And it's called The Oil Trail. This book came out in 2020. It's from Modiphius. It is a hardcover. It has full color interior art, some really pretty stuff. It's a little smaller, but a little more convenient in this digest size format. And we've got it on the shelf here at Immortals for $40. If you're into the video game, or if you think maybe adventuring in this kind of dark, gritty, Victorian style setting might be a good time, stop in and check it out, or, hit us up at the website at immortalsinc.com.
And even if you guys haven't played the game and you want to delve into the RPG right away, Arcane is on the front of the book. They're the creators of, the universe itself. So I think it'd be a good idea to do vice versa, and well said.
All right. Till next time, folks. Good gaming.
Later.